It's my pleasure to contribute today to this inauguration of the 4th Award for Responsible Indian Business Membership Organizations on behalf of UNIDO, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. Let me start with congratulating the Foundation for MSME Clusters, FMC, and indeed all participating BMOs for the inspiration you provide to improve accountability and performance of BMOs. UNIDO is a specialized organization of the United Nations that supports its developing country member states, including India, in industrial development, for poverty eradication, globalization of trade, and environmental sustainability. Through policy dialogue, promotion of good practices, training, and technical assistance, UNIDO aims to grow in particularly small and medium-sized enterprises in the manufacturing and related sectors. Historically, industrial SMEs have been large job creators in economies at all stages of development, whether developing, low-income country, middle-income country, or even high-income countries. In India, the segment of MSMEs contributes around 8% of GDP, 45% of manufactured output, and 40% of export, through in excess of 40 million enterprises, which employ anything in excess of 60 million people. The numbers are subject to some discussion, but it gives a sense of the vast conglomerate of MSMEs. The numbers are, though, distorted by the micro-enterprises, as the median number of employees reportedly hovers just above 1, which basically means that half of the MSMEs have 2 or less employees. Indeed, number-wise, the MSME sector is dominated by the micro-segment that at some stages appears to operate in a subsistence mode. And in this regard, one might say there is a comparability with the agriculture sector and the trade sector. Further development of the MSME sector, though, in our view, will require stratification with customized strategies and policy and financial regimes for different types of MSMEs. We cannot move forward with 40 million MSMEs with one-size-fits-all approach. UNIDO supports the implementation of the globally agreed, universally applicable and ambitious sustainable development goals of the SDGs that collectively constitute the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. I would like to basically correct the introduction which you gave earlier on. You said it's the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and this is basically not the case. These were universally agreed by 193 heads of government, so they are as much your goals as the UN goals in that sense. But I think the trust is fair. There's 17 SDGs with associated 169 targets, and in part they are a reinforcement and rejuvenation of the earlier Millennium Development Goals that covered particularly social developments such as eradication of hunger and poverty, health and education. The SDGs, though, expand much further and cover the drivers for economic growth, which is industrialization, innovation, urbanization and energy, drivers for inclusiveness and just societies, peace, justice, partnership and equality, as well as the elements of stewardship over water, land, air and climate. The 17 SDGs together then serve the common destiny, the journey towards a sustainable future for all that we'll have. Together, these 17 SDGs could also be seen as a complicated dice. There's a dice with 17 sides. As soon as you start to move one of the sides, one of the topics on the SDGs, all the others will also move. UNIDO's main involvement is for the SDG 9, which covers industry, infrastructure and innovation. But this is, of course, intrinsically linked to all the other SDGs. In the context of this meeting, I would particularly like to highlight SDG 8, economic growth and decent work, SDG 10 on reduction of inequalities, and SDG 17, which deals with partnerships for good governance, capacity building, technology and investment. It's often been argued that business needs the SDGs, as the SDGs provide compelling growth strategies for individual businesses large, as well as the world economy. There are opportunities identified in health and education, infrastructure, innovation, which ultimately rely or point the way for where business can invest. Vice versa, the SDGs need business, as the abundance of market opportunities created by the SDGs will only materialize if there's private sector investment to step up to the challenge. You might have seen last year the Business and Sustainable Development Commission, a global think tank, presented an assessment of the business case for the SDGs, focusing on 4 main trust areas: food and agriculture, cities, energy and materials, health and well-being. In these 4 sectors alone, the SDGs present globally a market opportunity of about 12 trillion USD. About 1 trillion thereof is located in India, and their realization is projected to create some 73 million new jobs in India. So the SDGs are also big business not only for big business, but also for small enterprises. The World Business Council for Sustainable Development has then argued that individual business should look at the impact of the SDGs from the perspective of risk of inaction. What happens if, as a business, if you leave behind and ignore the social and environmental expectations, capturing of opportunities, there's new opportunities identified, better information that's available to make long-term investment decisions, and of course the need for cooperation. This is responsible business in the context of global aspirations. Business to meet the SDGs in the double meaning of meeting. Firstly, meeting as encountering and getting to know the SDGs, which requires a process of localization of the intent and the specific contents of the SDGs. But also meeting as achieving the SDGs, which requires business decisions to adjust business practices, products and services to deliver tangible outcomes to each of the 17 SDGs. UNIDO spearheads then an industrial transformation towards inclusive and sustainable industrialization that's aimed at advancing economic competitiveness, sharing prosperity, and ensuring environmental sustainability. These are big words, and then more simply, I'd like to say this is that we are aiming for factories that are fit for the future, but that we basically already urgently needed yesterday. These are factories that are productive and competitive in national and international markets. They can survive themselves, but they are also deliver net benefit to all stakeholders, workers, communities, consumers, and take resource, environment, and climate concerns at heart. In this sense, we can also say this is an extension of the ZED approach. It's zero effect, so productivity. It's zero defect, productivity, zero effects, environment, and I would add there zero harm to people. But ultimately, I'm also of the impression that 0 is not good enough. We should aim for positive contributions. So we should first zeroing out the defects and the harm, but ultimately looking at doing something positive for society and the environment. Specifically in the environmental domain, gearing up for the SDGs starts with using all natural resources, energy, water, materials, land, productively, so that nothing goes to waste, and indeed emissions, effluents, and waste are minimized, which in turn improves then the quality of life for people and the communities and workers, and they become then more productive. This is in turn, this is really a virtuous cycle of resource productivity, waste minimization, and then well-being, which is the concept that UNIDO has been promoting as resource efficient and cleaner production. Working with affiliate centers of expertise, UNIDO has demonstrated extensively over the past 2 decades in India as well as elsewhere that RCP, this resource efficient and cleaner production, delivers real-time benefits for enterprises, including MSMEs, through lower input costs, more and better quality products, compliance, and organizational efficiency. If I move to the domain of social responsibility, gearing up to for the SDG starts with a dialogue with stakeholders affected or potentially affected by the activities and decisions of businesses in accordance with international interpretations and guidance on social responsibility. Specifically, we can look at ISO 26000, which considers the 7 subject areas of potential community and environmental impact: organizational governance, environment, labor, human rights, fair operating practices, community development, and consumer affairs. Contrary to first impressions, these are all interrelated. Poor environmental practices, for example, expose workers, community, and consumers to health risk, compromising ultimately also their human rights, a situation that would also involve non-compliance, consisting of breach of both governance and fair operating practices. A major challenge remains that the responsibility subjects are such big concepts that need to be basically unpacked or understood within the specific business circumstances. This is particularly challenging for ill-resourced and small and medium businesses. So MSMEs are typically at a disadvantage to implement inclusive and sustainable practices and techniques due to unfavorable economics of scale, outdated technologies, and gaps in skills, business capacities, and financing. Though, and I would like to stress that, small can also be an advantage in terms of flexibility and agility, in particular for startups. Many MSMEs are indeed leading the way. Let me just share one recent example that because 3 Indian clean tech startups backed just last week in Los Angeles the top trophies in the global clean tech program of UNIDO and the Global Environmental Facility. The top award was taken by Sati Eco Innovations, an Ahmedabad-based startup, for developing a technology to make fully biodegradable and compostable sanitary pads made from waste banana tree fiber. Novolt, solar and electric boats from Cochin, that runs India's first solar-powered ferry in Kerala, took out the Renewable Energy Award. Aspartica Biotech from Bengaluru won the waste beneficiation category for using discarded silkworm pupa to produce omega-3 fatty acids for enriching poultry feed. Notwithstanding these and other small business successes, the majority of MSMEs struggle to keep up with today's demands and barely spot their own achievements as well as shortcomings. Many are more or less content on the status quo. Most have not, or maybe not yet, set their mind on changing business practices and techniques. And many are not well placed to look for assistance, and even worse, if they were, where would they go for trustworthy advice, appropriate technology, and affordable finance? This points out to deficiencies in the ecosystem for business provision of business services, be it either technical, human resources, or financial. And the current scenario, business membership organizations play a critical role. BMOs, those are quite diverse, and the quality of services is highly variable. Governance and continuity are often weak, and moving with the election of the next chairperson and executive committee. Moreover, elections often favor the most successful businesses, and their interests may set the agenda of the BMO at large. There's a need to professionalize the BMOs and instill responsibility and accountability. In this regard, UNIDO really applauds the FMC to run the 4th time in succession today the award for responsible Indian BMOs. I would like to conclude here with felicitating upfront today's awardees and winners. Congratulations on your achievements, and indeed may you serve as an inspiration for the many others. Thank you for your attention.